I've got to admit that since I was a kid, my thirst for adventure had me into every Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer type of adventure I could put my hand up for. And I guess I've really just never grown up. On past hunts, we've used four-wheel drives, ATVs, boats, helicopters, aeroplanes, horses, mules, and even good old leg power to get into remote country. But there's one method of transport we've never used up until now, and that's the river and rafts. On this hunt, I'm joined by some super keen deer hunters and great blokes from my local Westernport ADA branch. We've scoped a remote location, but we can't get to it by road, and it's a long way to walk in and out. But with a big river like this one, cutting through the centre of some very tasty looking Sambar country, we're going to jump in the rafts and throw ourselves at it. 4 days, 30 odd Ks of river and hundreds of square kilometres of mountains to explore. It's time to pump up, gear up, then get floating so we can start hunting my favourite deer species of all, Victoria's finest, the mighty Sambar. Getting sorted for a hunt like this certainly wasn't like any of our normal Sambar hunts, and the organisation and preparation done here was more like an overseas mission, with the level of planning and research that was required to get everything to fall into place. In the lead up, we looked at multiple rivers and had spoken to kayakers, landowners, fishermen and forward drivers to get the best idea possible of what might lie ahead. Next, we worked out our float times and the distance we'd cover, then organised car drop-offs and pickups. Of course, once we started, the plan was likely to go out the window or literally down the river. Between us, we'd be using two sorts of vessels. The first, the latest design in a kayak-style lightweight pack raft, and the second being your typical inflatable raft. I'd had plenty of fun on this raft before and had got us through a wapiti ballot and fjordland, so I was confident it would survive the trip. We seem to have managed a magic morning to start with here, and in a few minutes we should be underway. I'll just take you roughly through our setup. We've got a couple of different setups we're running here between rafts and pack rafts. So on this guy here, it's a sort of Zodiac type inflatable, a bit bigger, about sort of 2.2 by 1.2 wide, a bit more stable if you like. You can take a bit more gear. I'm running 4 barrels. I've got clothing in one, food in another, camera gear in another, and sleeping gear in another. I'll be having my hunting day pack on top under the cargo net, which I've zip tied on in case I go over. But I'm the only one without a wetsuit, so I'm going to be doing everything I can to avoid going in this river. Naturally, we're running helmets, life jackets, and our rifles in a waterproof bivvy. That's kind of it really. Nice and simple. Taking a bit more gear than it would be when we're backpacking though. I'm probably running about 40, 50 kilos, maybe a little bit more. But with the raft, we've got a bit more room and a bit more weight, so we're taking a few more luxuries. So obviously we've got to prepare for worst case scenario of doing a flip and having everything inverted. So everything that needs to be dry, like my sleeping bag, the camera gear, the food, that's all secured in those O-ring sealed canoe drums. I'm going to have my hunting gear on the top here under the cargo net. That's mostly day pack sort of, just general hunting gear that can get wet if we need to. We want to be able to have the freedom to hunt straight off the rafts or if we see a deer. So we want to have that kind of flexibility. And then we've ripped up these new rifle bivvies, and in here I've got a very, very nice bit of new equipment from Seiko, but we'll talk about that later. We're just about ready to roll. I'm going to get Daz to take us through his setup on the pack raft, and they've got 3 of the same setup here that him and Azza and Greg are running for this trip.
These rafts we got made by an Aussie company, Pack Raft Australia. A fella down there, Jeff, was nice enough to custom build these ones. He makes lots of standard ones as well, but we actually got these made for a fjordland earlier on in the year, and that was the maiden voyage. But the idea with the pack raft is it rolls up to kind of an A3 size bag, I suppose, and these ones came in at about 4.8 kilos. They can go down to about 3 kilos, and you can make them as heavy or as light as you want. So we got 3 of them done.
As opposed to the 20
Yeah, 23 for the Morocco boats, but they're a lot tougher, obviously, so there's a bit of a compromise. Good thing with this is you can, worst case scenario, if you get to a spot on the river and you think it's a bit too gnarly or you can't go around, you can put it up, put it on your backpack and port over and then blow it back up and away you go again. So that is a big advantage. They can carry about 500 pounds. Haven't tested that, but I'm sure, Aaron, if we get a deer, and we've taken a few luxuries, so we might test that theory out. But yeah, this is Aaron's setup. He's got a big dry bag up the front, and we've got dry bags for the rifles similar to Rob's one. And I've done a similar thing just the other way around. I'm a bit shorter so I can get mine down in there. I've chucked a fishing rod and a few luxuries as well. I've got proper food this time and fruit and all those bits and pieces. And Greg over here, he's kind of mixed it up in a few little separate bags. That he's definitely gone the lightest. So yeah, it's downriver from here.
Amateurs like us, there was a few anxious moments as we did our final gear check, stepped in and said goodbye to the safety of dry land and the vehicles. It did take some adjusting to get used to steering and paddling with the weight of all the gear, but a few minutes under the belt and we're all feeling confident. Lucky for us, the first rapid was barely more than a ripple.
All right, the boys are all through the first one. Taking the inside line. Sambar rafters. Oh, go!
After leaving the vehicles and starting off downriver, the first wider section was pretty easy and straightforward and was actually very shallow in a couple of places. We had to be careful to avoid scraping the bottom as well as walk our way around a couple of tricky log jams. As the river started to narrow, we could hear the first of the decent rapids up ahead, and we were all certainly keen to see how our setups were going to hold up in the faster flowing water. Daz headed down first and he made it no worries and relayed back to us the best line, so we followed suit. And with the cameras rolling, no one wanted to be the first one to get wet.
Here we go. All good? All good? Yeah! Too good? Az is in, Daz is through. It hasn't taken us long to start to realise that this is one of the best, most fun, magic ways to get into remote Sambar country. After these first couple of Ks that we've covered and we've got that under our belt, we're now out of the fringe and into the forest and heading deeper and deeper into the more remote stuff. It's a pretty gnarly face up here, steep as all hell, but they'd be on there. Very dry in this country, as you can see behind me. Really, really dry. I think the ticket for this hunt in this country is going to be finding the feed. When we find the feed, we'll be able to find the deer. So our plan is to go probably another K or so. It's a bit hard to tell. It looks good on the map, but when you get on the river, really, really windy. No surprise. But a couple more bends and we're going to pull up. We don't want to go too far because we're already in some fantastic country and there's no going back.
The next phase was a nice run, balanced between long, quiet pools we gently floated through and some short, faster flowing rapids. It was a great drift, and as we got deeper into the bush, we were getting keener and keener to get out for a hunt. After a few more Ks, our first flagged campsite at the mouth of a gully came into view around a bend.
That's the easiest walk into camp ever. We all survived. I think only Daz went in. Is that right? I got wedged. Don overshot the runway by a little bit. Nearly ended up at the next camp, but we're all here. It's pretty cool when you can pull up and the deer sign is red hot. I kid you not, there's a preach tree right here where we're going to camp. I reckon it's a day old, if that.
The fresh preach certainly got us keen, and we were happy sharing the flat with the stag. It certainly was a great little spot, and we made quick work of emptying the rafts and getting camp sorted, as we'd all be back in the dark.
There's a few different options for sleeping between us. A couple of the boys here going tents, or mostly tents. We've got bivvy bags as well. Andrew and I are just going to bivvy it tonight. We might be getting a bit of rain later, but we'll be fine either way in the bivvy bags. And clear a bit of space between these two trees, string up a fly bivvy bag underneath it. Job done. It's go time. The boys haven't wasted any time in getting out there. Behind me up in this little bowl, Daz and Azza are pushing up high. Have a look down in that. Greg and Don are starting down low and going up this huge big gully system behind us that goes a long way up. And Andrew and I are going to sneak up over that ridge that's skylining behind me. And as we came down the river, we did see some pretty bony bare faces. So we're going to head up there and kind of sit back and have a glass and try and see if any's coming down to this river. It's coming up to 3 o'clock. The weather is on the change, but it's, you know, a couple of hours into that golden hour where they should be starting to feed. So keen to get into it. Straight away we've hit fresh marks, really fresh marks. Daz having some fun too. They're onto a ruddy stag, they can smell him. But the marks here, they're really fresh, probably from this morning. If I was a betting man, I'd say that that's deer coming back up. They are moving up. They splay in the direction of travel. They don't throw much out when they walk up. When they're coming down, they've got a lot of weight behind them, so they push a lot of marks out. That's a medium-sized deer, probably a stag. Heading up on this bony face, exactly where we're going. Always a good thing. Now Daz and Aaron are up there in that basin somewhere. They're onto a ruddy, smelly stag. So they tell me over the Garmin Rhino. Anyway, we're going to continue on our contour along here. And we've got some beautiful little nice open river flats. That's an A1 spot to glass for deer coming down in the afternoon. We've been sucked into glassing across the river there. As easy as it is and attractive as it is, it's a bit of a long shot and really can't get across there, but it's great to be able to glass those faces. Leaving that and coming in on our side, we come into this beautiful little gully, or gully head if you like, or lower gully head. The feed area. Up top there's the thick stuff for the winds blowing, but it's so quiet in here, perfect spot to find a sambar. I've just been pinged by Daz on the radio, and it sounds like he's had some luck. We'll try and get him on the radio and see what he's found.
Okay, any of you boys got a copy?
Yes, mate. Yep, we're on.
Yeah, Az and I are just up above camp, and we've got 2 hinds feeding, heading up the hill. They're approximately 500 metres from our position.
Yeah, nice work, good stuff. We're in a premium little bowl here. There's plenty of sign, plenty of fresh marks too, but we haven't found anything yet. But I've got that feeling we're being watched, you know.
Try and drop down and get into a shootable range to these 2. One of the hinds has got a really golden coat. It's a pretty amazing coat actually. She's probably one of the goldest deer I've seen. So I've got a little bit of footage. We'll try and sneak in and get a bit closer to them.
Are they far from camp? Is it achievable for a meat animal, or is it too far?
Yeah, there is a younger one. She's the one with the good capes, the older one. So if we can get this younger one for meat, it's actually straight up from camp. So it'll be an easy carry out.
All right, mate. We'll leave it with you. Keep us posted. Good luck. Out.
Copy that.
Some pretty tasty looking Sambar country over there with that river flat and nice steep face, but we've been out of the action this afternoon. The boys have had a bit of fun. Dad spotted a good big stag, grazed away from him too far, 500 odd metres with a couple of hinds. And then Greg's had a shot at a deer, but he missed. So we'll catch up with them back at camp and find out what happened. We're just about out of light now. We're going to have to start making a move back to camp. But as the light goes down, we'll stop and just glass a couple of points about across the river. I just ranged it. It's only 200 metres across there, so we're in with a shot. if something pokes its head out. The good light's coming up, and we're in place here on a steep face up above the river, overlooking that flat and the broken ground where we were last night. Just on dark, Daz, from his position way up there, saw 2 deer come across here. We couldn't see them. Andrew and I were glassing hard, but just we didn't have the right angle, obviously. Daz couldn't make out what they were, but it was definitely 2 deer. So it's only sort of 7:15. We've been here for an hour or so from dark as the lights come up. And yeah, we've still got a fair bit of time left. But yeah, nothing's moved yet. Greg's already had a bit of success. He's snuck in on a bedded fawn further up the gully behind us. So yeah, we're just going to wait this out. The deer have got to move a bit to feed here. No surprises. All the deer that Daz has seen, he's been spotting them, have been on the move, you know, heading to feed or heading to bed. So I think they're going to give themselves away if we just sit tight. I've ranged that. That's 250 across there, so this is a pretty good place to have a shot. It's very tempting to glass all this country, but probably realistically it's out of reach and out of range to find a deer. I'm also using the Swaro 15s, a bit of weight to lug around, but it's worth it for this country. You can sit here on a tripod like I'm doing now. They've got a tripod mount. I'm just resting on the top of this guy, and you can get in there and you can pick apart the mountain. You can get right in under the trees, you can get behind the leaves, you can see through the leaves. So if you've got the time, they're worth it. And bang, I've just picked up on a wallaby. It's amazing what you can see with these. There's a wallaby scratching away over there. We've had a pretty slow morning on the deer front, but because he saved the day with picking up on a hind across the river over here. We tried to get some footage of her, but as quickly as we found her and worked out what she was, she's gone in under a gum, disappeared, probably bedded, we think. Despite glassing a huge part of that face and a lot of country, we just haven't been able to find any animals. Anyway, that's the way it is. That's salmon hunting. The other guys have struggled a bit too this morning. So it's probably time for us to pack up and head back over the top here on the way back towards our camp. We're coming through some sunny faces. It is a cold night. The deer we have seen have all been in the sun, so maybe a couple of these sunny gully heads we might be able to kick something out of. And it's back to camp and time to load up to the rafts and head off into some new country. Cutting back through these north-facing gully heads. It's just Sambar 101. I love doing this stuff. It's pretty thick and the action's usually fast. But it's very exciting putting Sambar out of their beds. We've just come across a group of beds here. And their northerly aspect, this is a really great example of a Sambar bed, just tucked in behind this gum to give it broken shade like it is there. And then there's another one there, there's another one there, there's another one there. So just depending on how cold it is and how windy it is and how hot or cold they're feeling, they just move a couple of metres. There's hair in it here. It's easy to find the hair in a fresh bed. And contouring through them about this height, you know you're on them. It's just a matter of finding them in the right bed, right place, right time. Always a crucial piece of the puzzle. There's been a stag in here too. There's this dogwood. It's just been very lightly rubbed. He's knocked off all the little tips
They're fresh as, they haven't even wilted yet. He's knocked all them off that bush. There's more on the ground down there. There's one. Fresh as. There's no surprise why stags use these dry, sunny gully heads to bed. Their radar-like ears can pick up on any approaching threat, and they often either sneak out silently or wait to blast you at near point-blank range with a loud honk, then smash off through the bush like a bulldozer. Stalking them here is usually painfully noisy, and cornflake syndrome was in full swing. As awkward as it is, I love it, and it's guaranteed excitement when you get onto them up close. As we moved through the gully heads, I was convinced a stag was going to break at any moment, but the deer were just too good for us today, and we didn't see a thing. Hunting our way back, I was convinced those gully heads were going to provide, and as we started to break camp, I went over a few different scenarios in my head and came up with some new plans and theories for our next stalk. For now though, the most important thing was getting all the gear safely packed and sorted, as the weather was on the change, the wind was up and the river was flowing harder.
Well, we're nearly ready to hit the road. The water level has come up pretty considerably actually overnight. We had a fair bit of rain, but probably more upstream. I reckon it's come up about a foot or so. It's certainly pretty dirty and flowing a fair bit faster. But anyway, the boys have just set off ahead of us and we're going to get going now. Plan to get down maybe 2 or 3 Ks and hook into a whole new valley system. Fresh, no scent, be ready to explore for this afternoon's hunting.
As we set off on the next phase, the disappointment of the quiet morning on the hunting front was soon offset by the anticipation of what was still to come. For me and the boys, and no doubt many others, the lure, challenge and excitement of the unknown far exceeds the safety and sanctuary of the norm.
Maroka 30 is the proud hunting clothing and equipment sponsor of Beyond the Divide, custom designed for our local conditions and uniquely Australian. Ask for it in store at your local gun shop or check out the full range at maroka30.com.au.